Hello and welcome to Digital Nation. We're taking a trip up and down the United Kingdom, stopping off at some of the country's local TV stations to find out what stories they've been unearthing. In this week's show, we meet a Liverpool lad who's made it big in Beijing. We go back to school with a Leeds author. And we light up London's Tower Bridge. And if you're watching at home, you can tweet about us using the hashtag #DigitalNation. First up this week, we're heading to Cardiff to meet an international rugby refereeing legend. 10 years ago, Nigel Owens announced he was gay, which was potentially a challenge in the sport known for its macho culture. But today, he's sharing his story to try and help others like him in the sporting world.
You know, the message clearly is that, that it doesn't matter who you are or where you come from or what the colour of your skin is or religious beliefs or your sexual orientation is, that there should be a place for you in not only in society and everyday life, but in particular in my case in sport as well, in the sport that I sort of loved, and that is rugby. All that anybody wants to be is be able to be themselves, really, and that's all I wanted to be, was to be myself and to be treated the same. And I think it's also important to remember that we shouldn't be treated any different. It's not us going out there and pushing things in people's faces and saying, look, we should be treated better or we should get more opportunities. That's not the case, and I think that's a very important message from my point of view is that we to be treated the same and get the same opportunities, and as long as everybody gets the same opportunities, no more and certainly no less, then that's all that everybody should really want. And I think that's an important message for people to remember as well, I think.
The icon was supported by LGBT charity Stonewall, who want to empower individuals to be themselves.
So our work at Stonewall is very much about empowering individuals to be who they are, to be authentic, and it's about changing hearts and minds. It's about creating a world, a Wales, if you like, where people can be who they are and that they can be accepted without exception.
Though many still battle with accepting who they are and feeling confident to come out in society, Nigel Owens and the people here are hoping to make a positive change in sport.
Music now, and the distinctive Liverpool sound has spread around the world ever since the Beatles first crossed the Atlantic. Now it's the turn of Barry Cox to follow in their footsteps. The one-time supermarket shelf stacker decided to learn Chinese as a teenager and has since become a TV and pop sensation on the other side of the globe.
Born and bred in Liverpool, it was like for most a humble beginning for Barry, working as a salesman in a local electrical store. But it was one day 20 years ago that Barry yearned for something different and decided to pursue a lifestyle change. He took a job in a Chinese supermarket, enrolled in the local Chinese Pagoda Community Centre and learnt the language with the help of some of his now close friends. And as speaking the foreign language wasn't hard enough, he decided to sing in Chinese as well. His career in singing quickly snowballed, taking his rare gift to Hong Kong and China, and ultimately became the first Westerner to become an internationally renowned cantopop, mandopop singer. But it was the city of Liverpool where it all began.
Here I was studying entertainment, acting and singing and stuff, but then I thought in my mind, if I can do all my dreams what I want to do in England and America, and maybe if I can change it to China and Hong Kong and learn the language well, act in Chinese and sing in Chinese, then that would be a perfect dream. And then slowly I made those steps to going over there. It wasn't an easy journey, but I did make it in the end, and here I am 14 years later. I'm still over there and I'm living the dream that I had back in like 1997, 98.
And what was at first a pipe dream soon became a reality. After 14 years of living in Hong Kong, Barry stayed true to his word and never forgot his roots. Even today, when Barry returned back once or twice a year to Liverpool, everything resumed back to normal, like he never left.
In the community, in the Liverpool community, in the Chinese community that is, he's been accepted, as you say, as one of your own. The thing is, he hasn't forgotten his roots, so whenever he's back in Hong Kong, whenever he's back in UK from Hong Kong, he'll look for the people he's known and the people that who's been with him all the years, that, how can you say, through his progress. And actually, he's gone far from beyond what I would say. I mean, it's not only the Cantonese he learns, it's the Putonghua as well, you see. And writing, reading, but singing is another thing, and acting, what more can you say? For the local lad from Liverpool, that is.
And after years in which his reputation has grown, at least as Gok Pa Wing, as he is known to the Chinese, Barry continues to regularly perform throughout Hong Kong, China, Malaysia and Singapore, and has a huge following that extends worldwide. In addition to singing, he's appeared in various Chinese dialogue films and was a TV artist performing in local Cantonese speaking soap operas for 3 years. Despite having no regrets about his choice of career path, there is still hope in the not so distant future that he will return to the UK, with the ambition of teaching both dialects of Mandarin and Cantonese to the local community.
It's one of the capital's most photographed landmarks, but Tower Bridge is set to become a top culture destination too. The iconic crossing has started hosting performances and has just been taken over by artists from the Guildhall School of Music and Drama. Over to London Live to head deep inside the bridge.
So we're about 6 or 7 metres beneath river level at the moment, and we are moving down what you can see as a very industrial operational space. And here we are in the main attraction, the belly of Tower Bridge. We're inside the bascule chamber. Well, this is one of the very first times that we've used the space as a cultural venue. We've had to make various adaptations, the staircases, put handrails in, these sorts of things, just to make it as safe as humanly possible. It is fundamentally an operational space. The second challenge is the notion of bridge lifts. We do have a statutory obligation to raise the bridge for any vessel that requires it within 24 hours notice. So we have to build the performance schedules to accommodate those if necessary, because you can plan events to take place across an entire weekend as we have, and within a day's notice we have to build the ability to raise the bridge into that. But of course, as far as being a ticket holder, that's just going to add to the experience, which we think is part of the whole immersion within the event.
Video art and design covers a huge range of different things, but what we're looking at specifically here really falls into the category of architectural mapping, which is about pointing projectors at a three-dimensional object, a large-scale object, transforming that into a series of different things using animation and motion graphic technique. Predominantly, most of the work has been done in the studio and we're presenting that to the audience, but there is still some live programming that's happening here.
Now, I don't know about you, but I used to love a bit of roller skating action as a nipper. In fact, I still do a bit now. Well, one mum in Nottingham has decided youngsters today are missing out. So she set up her very own skate rink so that her kids can have somewhere to roll around.
I used to roller skate a long time ago when we had a roller skating rink in Nottingham, and it was ever so good fun. I used to go there all the time. And then what happened was my children started taking up roller skating. There's no dedicated roller skating rink in Nottingham. Some leisure centres do it, but it's not the same as having a roller skating rink. You know, my children wanted to be able to skate on a rink, not just round a little room.
How many times have you fallen over today? Be honest with me.
None.
I don't believe you.
About 10. Last week I fell over 1 million times. Once. 0.
0? I find that hard to believe. What about you?
Once.
At any point did you think, actually, maybe I want to have a quiet half term?
Well, yes. My children are here. They're here supporting and helping me. You know, you've probably seen, a few of my sons. I've got 3 sons and they all love skating. My daughter's helping with people coming in the door, so it is really a family-run business. And then because I'm kind of from the old skating era, a lot of the old skaters are here also helping us out, so it's been great. It really is feel like a kind of a community that's come together to do this.
To Bristol now to hear the story of Isaac, a young man with cerebral palsy whose mum needed financial help to make their house more accessible. The first builder who came to work on the property unfortunately let them down, leaving a crater in the back garden. Thanks to an impressive fundraising effort, they've collected enough money to make the house fit for Isaac.
Marooned in his mother's home, Isaac has cerebral palsy, and in his condition, even getting out of bed in the morning is a bit of a process. Mum Ruth has tried to improve accessibility for her son with an extension and wheelchair ramp. However, the work has gone far from smoothly.
So we launched into planning and all that kind of thing and got got planning permission sorted, and a friend of ours is a builder, and he said he would do the works for us. But I think he bit off a little bit more than he could chew. And also out the back where the extension's going, we've unearthed a sewer and a manhole cover. So we have to go back to planning permission.
The initial fundraising target to get the ramp built was £3,590. That's now been smashed at over £4,000, meaning the crater in the back garden is a little nearer to being filled in too. Isaac splits his time between his divorced parents' houses, but it's his dad's that's officially home. This makes fundraising vital to making accessibility improvements at his mum's house. He's certainly not been a fan of the temporary measures.
Not really. Well, with all the accidents I've had, we've busted my head open and spilled the kettle down my leg when I was younger. I can't go down the ramp without feeling a little bit nervous about falling out of my chair.
A keen wrestling fan, Isaac hasn't been short of supporters when fundraising.
The Chaos Club, as we call ourselves, and I've never been so touched by many people's generosity.
Due to finish college in the summer, Isaac is looking forward to the opportunities and freedoms he can enjoy away from his parents. With work on Ruth's house looking ready to recommence though, it seems there'll always be at least two places for Isaac to call home.
Well, that brings us to the end of part 1, but before the break, as always, it's time for our weekly quiz. So, where is the world's largest inhabited castle? Is it A, Stirling, B, Warwick, or C, Windsor? Join us after the break to find out. Hello and welcome back to Digital Nation. Before the break, we asked you, where is the world's largest inhabited castle? And the answer? It is, of course, C, Windsor. Yes, indeed, the original Windsor Castle was built in the 11th century by William the Conqueror, and it's been used by the reigning monarch ever since Henry I. With Brexit on the horizon, experts are guessing at just what might be in store, but with many adults still scratching their heads, what hope do young people have of making sense of it all? Well, one author has decided to write a book explaining Brexit to the youngsters. That's Oxfordshire went to find out all about it.
On June the 23rd in 2016, the UK voted out of the European Union, which left the country wondering what will happen next. The leave itself is set to affect the younger generation even more than those who got to vote. Since then, Oxford publisher Rink have published a Brexit Explained guide, which is aimed at Key Stage 2 pupils in primary schools.
Brexit has been a huge story in the news for the last kind of year and a half, really. And I was aware that it's like kind of a massive story that you hear about every single day. You can't walk past a newspaper, you can't turn on the TV or the radio without hearing people talking about Brexit. But there's next to nothing available to explain this kind of really important issue to young children, despite it being something that could actually affect them quite a lot.
While the effects of leaving the EU are unclear, the book hopes to help people understand some of the facts around Britain's relationship with the EU.
You know, we've had comments from adult readers that had actually said, you know, I wish I'd been able to read something like this before we voted, just because, again, I think so many people voted without knowing a great deal about the issues. So, yeah, so hopefully adult readers, if they did decide to read it, might find interesting points or information as well. If there are children that are worried about Brexit, then hopefully this will help them a little bit less worried. So, you know, it can't really explain or reassure people that everything will be fine, but it does kind of explain some of the background in the issues, so hopefully they'll at least understand what's going on a little bit better.
Did you know that an early form of Welsh was actually spoken across England once upon a time, and famous place names such as Dover and Avon both derived from Welsh words? And Bay TV Swansea visited a local school that's keeping the Red Dragon flying.
Ysgol Gymraeg Bryn Sherfyl's Drama Club performed the musical Welsh Not as part of the celebration, highlighting the difficulties Welsh pupils had in schools towards the end of the 19th century. With this new award being run throughout the county, I wanted to find out exactly what the new language charter was.
The Welsh Language Charter was born in Gwynedd, and it's Gwyned's baby, and it's something that is working across Wales, and it's really just looking at the aim is to inspire children to use the language.
Upon receiving this bronze award, the Ysgol Gymraeg Rhyshefel became the first school to win the award in Carmarthenshire.
I'm absolutely delighted that the school has been the first to be recognised for achieving this award. The staff and the pupils, the parents, the governors, the whole local community and other agencies who have helped us achieve this with their support and help over the past year must be feeling very proud today as well. We've invited lots of people into the school from the members of the Scarlet team. We've had local poets, artists, actors, everybody has played their part, to be honest, in helping us achieve this award, and for that we are extremely grateful.
The UK is home to some pioneering women. Over to Creative Kingdom to find out about some female firsts.
When it comes to being female and first, there's no doubt that Britain has been full of women who did their own thing before anyone else. First female scientist, Caroline Herschel, 1773, Bath. First computer programmer, Ada Lovelace, 1842, Leicester. Designer of cars for women, Dorothy Pullinger, 1920, East Galloway. First female surgeon, Margaret Ann Bulkley, 1813, Edinburgh. Creator of child benefit, Eleanor Rathbone, 1945, Liverpool. First female MP, Nancy Astor, 1919, Plymouth. Proof, if it were ever needed, that when it comes to creativity, innovation and putting ladies first, in the UK Mint.
What do you know about Sir Beavis of Hampton? Well, Sir Beavis was a legendary hero, the subject of several medieval romances and a folk hero around Southampton. And now a local artist has turned his story into a comic. Over to that Solent, who got to meet the bloke behind the buck.
With popular culture fascinated with the realms of Middle-earth and the Seven Kingdoms, Southampton might seem like an unlikely place to find adventure and daring quests. However, the tales of Sir Beavis of Hampton have been given a new lease of life on the pages of a comic book.
Blood and Valour is a new comic book adaptation of the ancient legend of the knight Sir Beavis, who is Southampton's legendary figure. It's the first part of a much larger story. It's a locally produced comic with a local writer, local artists, printed locally, produced locally, supported by local council. So very much a local project about a local story.
Well, it's part of a programme that we were doing about Agincourt. We received grant funding to look at the impact of that battle on our local region. And we're trying to find lots of ways into that story that would appeal to different age groups. And in exploring it, we found that this was a character very much like King Arthur. He had all these adventures. And from that, we thought it was a really good project, particularly to engage with young people. So we did a whole primary school project about it. And then we thought we could reimagine the story again for an older audience. And this is how Blood and Valour's developed.
There is something about the act of reading a book, whether it's a comic book or a normal book, having the pages, physically turning the pages, feeling the weight of it. That has always been tremendously important to me as an individual, especially something like this, because it's what everything that Blood and Valour is trying to do is kind of bring this old story back to the surface and back into the everyday, and to be able to do that physically as well as through the social media and the website and all of those things. I think that's quite key and quite important, because we didn't used to have all of that stuff. We used to have to write things down. Once we'd told the stories, we'd write them down, and so I think there's something about that that's still, for me, will always be very, very important.
Manchester Cathedral has stood at the heart of the city for 6 centuries. You'd think that after all this time they'd have discovered everything there is to know about the building's history. But perhaps they weren't looking high enough, because the latest discoveries made by a photographer have uncovered some of the secrets of its ceiling.
these magical green men and curious creatures would have been hidden from sight, if not for the eagle eye of photographer Robert Watson. He was able to zoom in on the ceiling of Manchester Cathedral after scaffolding gave him the perfect vantage point to reach the top of the building.
We're having a lot of development work done here at the Cathedral, including this installation of this dollar organ. So this allows us to actually get up close to the ceiling. The craftsmen who created these used all kinds of symbolism in those bosses. So there's some of the bosses are drawn from nature, some are mythological creatures, we have images of the sun, etc. My job as heritage officer here involves looking after some of the heritage fabric, obviously, including the built environment. It's also about looking in the historic annals of the cathedral and finding out some of the stories, but also having to think about what we need to do with those stories to get them out to the public. So one of the things about the ceiling is now we'll be able to add new interpretation panels that will allow people to get a closer look at something that's actually quite far away without getting their binoculars out.
Finally, do you think you have what it takes to become a professional writer? Well, a group of Year 6 pupils in Leeds is way ahead of you, because when a local wordsmith returned to her primary school, little did they know that the outcome would be 2 published books and a handful of budding young authors. Emma Hardcastle is an author, and her writing passion was born when she entered a poetry competition when she was 14 years old. But before she went to secondary school, she studied here at a Low Ash primary school, and now she's back to pass on her writing skills to Year 6 pupils.
I just contacted them to see if they wanted to take part in a creative writing workshop, get the kids interested in writing based on a current topic they were working on. And they invited me in and welcomed me back, and we got the kids writing short stories about war, which is their topic at the time, back in November. And ever since then I've been compiling the books and getting them published for them, and they've now got one each, so they're so proud.
Suddenly, a piece of bomb shrapnel hit me on my head. My eyes began to close and show multicoloured swirls. I like the colours royal blue, rustic red, lilac, yellow and pastel pink.
Right, so I'm joined with some of the authors. Guys, you're all authors, firstly. How does that feel to be able to say you've, taken part in writing a book?
Great, excited and just honoured.
What makes you feel honoured?
Because I've published a book with an author and I feel a bit special and proud.
What's it been like having kind of a teacher like Emma?
It's just been an amazing opportunity to know how an author writes a books. And
I bet your mum was buzzing, wasn't she?
Well, I haven't told her yet because
she's going to find out now, isn't she? And what's her reaction going to be like?
Probably good.
Yeah, just good.
I've used all my words, so I'm not really sure.
You've used them in this book, haven't you?
Yeah.
And you can see from these bright sparks that they really do love to read.
We are the Welsh Primary School, and we are authors!
Thank you for joining us on our tour around the week's local TV offerings. If you have missed any of the previous 70+ episodes, do not forget you can catch up on the BBC iPlayer, or maybe visit your own local TV channel's website. So until next time, goodbye.